Let me guess. Hunter drank the Kool-Aid. I guess Hunter doesn't think all lives matter. Pfft. I guess Hunter doesn't care about black-on-black crime. Pfft. I might be an SJW soy boy leftist libtard cuck. So of course now I've gotta do a video responding to my 2016 video, The Problem with Black Lives Matter. I am once again doing a response to one of my most challenging opponents, myself. So strap yourself down and let's watch little lad Hunter explain to us the problem with Black Lives Matter.
Well, I know you're about to call me a racist, but let me be clear on one thing. This video is...
Also, come on, Hunter, no. Leather jacket, indoors, bruh. Let me tell you something, all right? How would old 2016 Hunter like to be told this? If you wear a leather jacket inside, then that's gayer than if you wore sunglasses inside, bro.
Is speaking out against the Black Lives Matter movement as a political movement and as an ideology. This video is not speaking against black people as a race or the African American community. Me simply speaking out against the political movement Black Lives Matter is not speaking against black people as a race.
So I want to make sure that this is really clear what I said here at the beginning, because I'm going to hold myself to this as well. I said that my criticism is not towards black people, which I still stand by that. This is not a criticism of black people. I said that this is a criticism of the Black Lives Matter movement and an ideology. So I'm not criticizing the actual organization. Because even now, there's some yikesy shit about the Black Lives Matter LLC, okay? But, just like this video said, I am criticizing the Black Lives Matter movement and the ideology, not the organization. So let's continue, because that's going to be important throughout.
Black Lives Matter, the movement, is violent and racist. They hardly care about other black people unless it supports their political agenda. And they take issues that affect everyone and try to twist it into a blacks-only problem. Here's my problem with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay, wait, whoa, Hunter. Why the, like, really dramatic opening and then the corny-ass music with the title? Look at this. I start the video off like, hey guys, so of course this video isn't racist or anything like that, okay? So anyway, Black Lives Matter is racist, severe and violent, and will murder your women in their sleep. And then I'm like, here's my problem with the Black Lives Matter movement. My dead set eyes just full of all of my conservative talking points, ready to say exactly what I think is right because the common sense told me that the logic is the truth in the Fox News. All this big emotional roller coaster of an intro, and then we get this corny ass circus music. What's the deal, Hunter?
Number one. The movement is violent and racist. Time and time again, we are told by the media and other members of Black Lives Matter that the movement is peaceful. But all you have to do is literally open your eyes to see that this is a complete and total lie.
When you say, just open your eyes, it's obvious. You can usually tell this is about to be a really dumb argument because you don't make good, logical conclusions based on just what you see around you in your narrow point of view. You look at it from a statistical standpoint.
Say that every single member of the group is this violent racist, but the vast majority have proven to be violent and racist.
The vast majority. That's some pretty bold language, okay? I'm not going to even try to debunk anything. I want to actually see what my arguments are. But again, I want us to remember this. The vast majority have proven to be violent and racist.
You can start by looking at who the movement considers to be their heroes. These violent, hateful cop killers.
Alright, so let's go ahead and stop right here. This is my first real attempt at making an argument, and it's when I bring forward this article that says a short list of Black Lives Matter's cop killing heroes. I'm gonna be honest, I remember making this video. I didn't read this article. I literally just saw the headline, it fit my narrative, and that's what I went with. Turns out that this article comes from good old-fashioned Breitbart. I remember the good old days, man, when I just needed a stat or something that supported my agenda. I could just go to Breitbart, and there it was waiting for me. Anyway, I looked through this article and actually read it, and sorry, Hunter. It doesn't really prove your point, buddy. This entire article makes a ton of leaps, it makes a bunch of reaches, and it relies almost purely on ad hominem attacks. So they're saying because the co-founder of what they say is the movement, but they're talking about the organization, which is already kind of a flaw because I hammered down at the beginning of my original video that this was a criticism of the Black Lives Matter movement, not the Black Lives Matter organization. Anyway, my whole proof that Black Lives Matter is violent comes from this article, which says, because the co-founder said in an interview that she repeats this quote that says, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." Okay, nothing really offensive there. This quote came from a woman who also killed cops in the 1970s. So obviously that's bad. I don't agree with killing cops, but because they recite this quote that came from a woman who also killed cops or whatever, that somehow that means they're worshiping cop killers. It's such a ridiculous leap and a dumb ad hominem fallacy. From this point on, they literally just cite like this guy's tweet thread saying a short list of cop killers who are heroes to Black Lives Matter without any proof. Literally no proof. They just put it up there and just say, there it is. Black Lives Matter likes these people. But yeah, there was my cute little first attempt at trying to make an argument by using the headline of a Breitbart article that actually didn't even really prove my point to begin with.
Now with this on the table, it should come as no shock that Black Lives Matter supporters took to Twitter to celebrate the deaths of the Dallas.
Alright, we're making a lot of the cliche arguments here. First and foremost, I know this doesn't debunk the point, but I gotta point it out because it's funny. I got this from InfoWars. Hunter, I want to believe that you were better than that at this point. Paul Joseph Watson? Oh my god, dude. Come on. Literally just random tweets that celebrated cops that got killed, which again is horrible, but because they're random tweets that we're just assuming these are Black Lives Matter supporters, and therefore that's proof that Black Lives Matter is violent, guys. Even in my own video, when I go through these tweets, only one of them actually even say Black Lives Matter. Look, the rest of these are just random tweets. Literally every group has radicals. The MAGA group, they sometimes attract neo-Nazis. Sorry, that's just the truth. Doesn't mean that everybody who supports Trump is a neo-Nazi, though. There are leftists, and then there are tankies. There are feminists, and then there are pop feminists, and then there are TERFs. But of course, a movement that criticizes the police is also going to attract disgusting people that want to kill police, and that are radical, and that are crazy. But that's not indicative of the entire movement.
And then a few days ago, when 3 officers were shot and killed in Baton Rouge, Black Lives Matter supporters once again took to Twitter to celebrate.
Again, there's literally, okay, actually, you know what? No, here, 1 point for you, Hunter. There's one that actually indicated they were legitimately a Black Lives Matter supporter. This is literally like if somebody said, hey, you know, a lot of Christians are really good people. And then I responded by saying, oh, really?
They say gay marriage is the harbinger of the imminent downfall of the rest of us. That's the man they call Gramps, their pastor, Fred Phelps.
So are your kids here too?
Yeah, 2 of them. Boy with the fag wedding cake, that's Boaz, and then Faith is there with the you hate your kids, and then that's my wife Lucy over there with the divorce plus remarriage equals adultery sign.
From this point on, I literally make the same argument over and over again. I show clips of certain people with the organization saying that it's largely peaceful, and then I flash pictures and videos of people doing things.
The police and you too, man.
Of people doing things that are not peaceful. Yeah, anytime there's a gathering of people, okay, and they share a common goal, and then if even a single one of those people do something that's not peaceful, that means the entire movement is a violent, disgusting terrorist threat. Again, this is like if somebody said, hey, there are plenty of great conservatives, and then I said, oh, really?
America confronted a frightening reality.
So you are a racist, you are a neo-Nazi.
If that's what makes you feel better, yeah. Label me whatever.
You are an anti-Semite.
Absolutely.
You are against refugees, against immigrants.
Yes. I'm America first, and I'm sorry to say what the president says, but yeah, Americans first.
Our plan will put America first!
Radicals do not speak for the entire movement, and besides, it's a known fact that the loudest voices get the most attention and the most media traction. Based on the recent Black Lives Matter protests, 93% of the Black Lives Matter protests have been peaceful, a new report finds. And again, this is why you can't just pull the, open your eyes argument. This was a report published Thursday by a nonprofit that researches political violence and protest across the world. The Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project analyzed more than 7,750 Black Lives Matter demonstrations in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. that took place in the wake of George Floyd's death between May 26 and August 22nd. Their report states that more than 2,400 locations reported peaceful protests, while fewer than 220 reported violent demonstrations. The author defines violent demonstrations as including acts targeting other individuals, property, businesses, other rioting groups, or armed actors. Obviously, violence is bad, but the vast majority of Black Lives Matter protests, at least this year, have been peaceful.
According to Black Lives Matter organizer, white people aren't welcome at rallies and should just hand over reparations so that they can purchase new cell phones and laptops.
Now, I again did not actually read what this legit article was saying, but I did manage to find the article that I believe is being referenced there, and it is not a very good article. It's very, very 2015-esque, sassy, SJW, cringy, like white people bad kind of crap. But from what I've gathered here is this woman was criticizing the fact that they were out protesting, like, black people dying and stuff, and then white people would show up acting like it was a hobby or treating it like a barbecue or something. But what's funny here is what this woman is doing is wrong. You see, she's overextending the white people label. When she says the fact that white people show up to these rallies as if it's a fucking barbecue, it's like, maybe some white people do that, but you're overextending that white people label. And it's funny that I'm bringing up this dumb article because what she's doing to white people, I'm doing to the Black Lives Matter movement in this video. So yeah, this article is stupid and gross, but I'm not really in any position to be complaining here, now am I?
Students at the University of Houston are now calling for the removal of their body vice president for posting this horribly racist thing on Facebook.
Uh-oh.
Just trigger warning, it's so racist.
Trigger warning.
She literally posted that all lives matter.
Oh, this is about to get spicy. First of all, the tweet didn't just say all lives matter. She actually said, forget Black Lives Matter. If you want to say all lives matter, go for it. I think it's very stupid that anybody would be offended enough by someone saying all lives matter to try to get that person fired. So I will acknowledge right off the bat that that's stupid, pathetic, woke, scoldy bullshit. At its base, there's nothing wrong with saying all lives matter, because of course all lives matter. The problem right now is when you look at it from a statistical standpoint, it doesn't seem as if black lives do matter. So I always have thought that the Black Lives Matter movement should have been called Black Lives Matter also, because that would get rid of all confusion. And when people say all lives matter, that's oftentimes a way to detract from the conversation and obfuscate from the real original conversation that needs to be had, which is black people are disproportionately dying at the hands of police, and that's largely because of systemic racist policies from the past that we're still seeing consequences of today. History has consequences. You don't use this logic anywhere else. You wouldn't go to a breast cancer awareness event and say something like, well, all cancer matters. When the Twin Towers were crumbling, people weren't saying, well, come on guys, all buildings matter.
Say all lives matter and everyone can agree, racism will not be able to end. You will never—
That's literally not true. When we can say all lives matter and that can include black people on a statistical basis, then all lives can matter.
The police brutality problem does affect black people, but it affects white people also. According to Roland G. Fryer, a black Harvard professor, black people are more likely to be mistreated by police as far as being pushed into a wall, handcuffed, weapon drawn, and so on. But black people are actually less likely to have lethal force used against them.
That might be true actually, but this is the lethal force in Houston. But again, when you look at it from a national perspective, black people are absolutely disproportionately targeted by police. Here's a chart showing that despite the fact that more white people are killed by the cops, when you adjust that for population, black people are greatly disproportionately affected by police shootings. NewScientist.com actually addresses this study. African-American economist Roland Fryer, also at Harvard University, has argued that there's no evidence for racial disparities in police shootings. These studies have received widespread media coverage. The problem is that these studies focus solely on people who interact with the police. For instance, by being stopped, says Feldman, the underlying argument is that if black people commit more crimes, a higher rate of police killings would follow. You can't do that in a valid way. If there's racial bias in why police stop people or investigate crimes in the first place, it's going to obscure the racial bias in police shootings or police killings. So that's the thing, is the police brutality discussion does not hinge on whether or not you die. What this is saying is that black people could be disproportionately being stopped, and so that could obscure the data when it comes to the actual lethal force as well. And here is a really, really interesting study published in a journal. This is from 2011 to 2014, and this was published in 2015, so this data was available to me when I made my Black Lives Matter video. The results provide evidence of a significant bias in the killing of unarmed black Americans relative to unarmed white Americans, and that the probability of being black, unarmed, and shot by police is about 3.49 times the probability of being white, unarmed, and shot by police on average. They also talk about how racial bias is more likely to emerge in police departments in larger metropolitan counties with low median incomes and a sizable portion of black residents. And before you 1350 me, listen to this one also. There is no relationship between county-level racial bias in police shootings and crime rates, even race-specific crime rates, meaning that the racial bias observed in police shootings in this dataset is not explainable as a response to local-level crime rates.
This fact completely contradicts the widespread idea that black people are more likely to be shot and killed by police.
No, it doesn't, because that was one single city, and when you look at it from a national level, you're wrong, Hunter.
According to CNN, more white people were killed from police in 2014. Trying to focus on, it's not a competition here. What matters is that people are dying.
No, hold on. Yes, it matters that people are dying, but we have to look at it through the lens of race, because I've heard a lot of people on the right say things like, oh, we're dividing people by race. Race is a component of the problem, and so we have to acknowledge the fact that it's black people who are disproportionately victimized by these issues in order to solve that problem. We can't just say, oh, people are dying, and that's all that matters, because that's not true. Of course it matters that people are dying, but it matters why they're dying.
Black Lives Matter movement doesn't care about other black people. Unless it fits their political agenda, of course. Time and time again, the Black Lives Matter movement protests and riots when a black person is killed. Unless that black person is killed by another black person, black-on-black crime is a massive problem currently affecting the black community. According to FBI data...
Guys, yeah, it's bad when the state murders black people, right? Of course. But black people also sometimes murder black people, so I think the real problem here is the blacks. Of course black-on-black crime is a problem, and of course black-on-black violence is the most prevalent among black communities. White-on-white violence is the most prevalent among white communities.
And where's the protests and the riots and the outrage for the black police officer who was just killed in Baton Rouge? Does his life matter?
Black Lives Matter, again, doesn't mean any time a black person dies anywhere by any cause, they go to the streets and start protesting. Black Lives Matter is supposed to be addressing systemic inequality and the disproportionate rate that blacks are killed by police. And also, the police brutality issue disproportionately affecting blacks is only the tip of the iceberg, because there is racial bias in our criminal justice system as well. Institutional racism most certainly exists, and it's most provable in the criminal justice system. Here's an extensive document on the racial bias in our criminal justice system. Studies seem to indicate about 61 to 80% of over black representation in prisons can be explained by a higher black crime rate. We'll get to that in a moment, don't worry. With the unexplained portion, meaning at minimum 20% of the black overrepresentation in prison is attributed to racial bias. From justicepolicy.org, white and black Americans admit to using and selling illicit drugs at similar rates. However, black Americans are vastly more likely to go to prison for a drug offense. Today, blacks are still 3.7 times more likely to go to prison for a marijuana offense. Here's another study that found black defendants with multiple prior convictions are 28% more likely to be charged as habitual offenders than similarly situated white defendants. So we have the data and we have the research. Institutional racism, specifically racism in our criminal justice system, absolutely exists, and that is largely what Black Lives Matter movement is trying to address. So it wouldn't make sense for them to protest every time a black person dies by anything. And here's the kicker, here is the ultimate ending. For those of you who like to bring up the black on black violence as a rebuttal to Black Lives Matter, by actually addressing these systemic inequalities and these systemic issues, we can then reduce the black on black violence. So in a way, what Black Lives Matter is supposed to be addressing will, in the long run, fix these issues. People living in households in the US that have an income level below the federal poverty threshold have more than double the rates of violent victimization compared to individuals in high-income households. For both whites and black African Americans in the US, the overall pattern of being in poverty with the highest rate of victimization was consistent. Urban poverty increased the risk of violence and crime for US households, but did not change the racial risk factors. So what can we learn from this? It has nothing to do with the fact that they're black. It has everything to do with the fact that black people are disproportionately living in poverty. So why are black people disproportionately living in poverty? Well, a lot of black people were unable to build generational wealth because for a long time, they were slaves. Then there was Jim Crow, and Jim Crow prevented a lot of black people from getting jobs, which forced them into these impoverished areas. A lot of white people would move out of those areas, they began investing elsewhere, and a lot of black people were kind of forced and reduced to these urban areas. And that wasn't that long ago. I mean, this was like 60, 70 years ago. It takes a long time to build up generational wealth, and even now, even today, there are still people living in shotgun shacks that were erected in the 1920s. So it's very sad, but that's why a lot of black people are disproportionately living in poverty, and in turn, black people are disproportionately victims of violent crime and disproportionately commit violent crime. And there are ways to fix this. First, we need to focus on the systemic inequalities so we can really address the root cause of the issue. Generally speaking, we need to invest in those areas. We also need to stop funding the schools with the taxes collected from the same neighborhoods, because that just keeps the vicious cycle of poverty going. We need to end the war on drugs. The war on drugs was actually started with racial intentions in a way to keep black people down after Jim Crow, and again, it also just encourages crime, and it totally has the opposite effect. It also puts an excessive amount of people into prisons. Well, there you guys have it. My current problem with my 2016 video, The Problem with Black Lives Matter movement. God, I wish I could debate my younger self. Please give this video a like, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all soon. Peace.